Hi everybody. Today's broadcast is in English. I received requests from friends and family that I do the speech I made a week ago in Hebrew named I Accuse, that I should translate it into English and do it in English. Now I had to think about it. What is the reason for doing the speech in English? It's an internal Israeli affairs. But then I understood that Israel being the safe haven of any Jew in the world, and Israel being the de facto protector of any Jew in the world, wherever they are, the internal affairs of Israel are the business of every Jew. So after much deliberation, I've translated the speech, and I will do it today here in English. Now, I've invited some of my friends over here, and I've asked them to add to this live feed their friends and families, members of the tribe, whose Hebrew is not good enough, and to ask them to invite them here to this live feed with us so that they can listen in English. And who's ever joining us now, I urge you to do the same. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon of a person with a little arrow going out the side. This is the invite button. You can press that, and then a window opens with your friends there, and you can choose the friends that you'd like to invite to this live feed. So if you do this right now, we'll see these friends joining us. Another thing that the people that are demonstrating here for the past year and a half, or protesting here for the past year and a half against government corruption already know is that in order to make this feed viral, we need many comments during the duration of the live feed. The target we're aiming at is over 1,000 comments. This is why you'll see many of my friends making short comments, repeated short comments, and I urge you to do so as well. You can, doesn't have to be very smart. You can repeat what I'm saying, you can applaud what I'm saying, you can criticize what I'm saying, as long as they're very, there's a large number of comments to this post, it will become viral. Another thing before I begin, regarding comments and especially regarding criticism. Your criticism is welcome. You don't have to agree with me, and you may criticize me. But let's set some ground rules. This is something that I learned from last week's speech in Hebrew. I will not tolerate violent remarks. So if I spot a violent remark, I will block the profile immediately. I will not tolerate extreme profanity. So if your comment or your criticism against me is filled with extreme profanity, I will block your profile. And another thing I will not tolerate is I will not tolerate defamation of the memory of the Holocaust. So if your criticism of me or my thesis here includes defamation of the memory of the Holocaust, again, I will block your profile. So no violence, no extreme profanity, no defamation of the memory of the Holocaust. All other criticism is welcome, and I will try to engage as many of you as I can after the speech. So I think there's enough of us here. Let's begin. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, for premeditated killing and maiming. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, for the mass killing in Gaza 2 weeks ago. Killing which you could have prevented. Killing which you refrained from preventing because it served your cynical goals. 65 corpses and 2,400 injured and counting all serve as an elections propaganda tool for you. It is not the Israeli Air Force pilots nor the Israeli soldiers to blame for this killing. They were sent to this contemptible mission by you. The blood of the killed and injured is on your hands. The fact that there are villains on the other side of the fence that are as responsible for this mass killing and maiming does not reduce your responsibility a notch. It has been for years you have been receiving reports of the impending explosion, and in the past year, even more urgently so. You have also been receiving from your own professionals concrete suggestions on how to prevent the killing. You have chosen the path of violence and death. You have chosen the path of violence and death in order to imprint on the mind of the exilic Jews that yet again they are facing a foe that has risen to extinguish them. It is not Tzipi and Bougie that have brought the Palestinians to walk on the fence. It is your doing. You are also responsible for the upcoming bloody confrontation expected due to a deliberate failure to act. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, for deserting the task of maintaining the security of Israel. For a decade, you have been watching Iran build its power in Syria and on the Israeli border, and yet instead of dealing with the problem, you have fought with those who could have given assurances, resources, means, and tools to deal with the problem, all for your personal glorification and in order to imprint in the mind of the exilic Jews that yet again they are facing a foe that has risen to extinguish them and that you are their sole protector. It is not Tzipi and Bougie that have brought the Iranians to the fence, it is your doing. And while abandoning the security of Israel, someone on your behalf has signed a letter allowing the German government to sell strategic submarines and weapons in contradiction to signed agreement between Israel and Germany to Egypt that was just several years ago in the throes of the Muslim Brotherhood. I accuse you, Mr. Attorney General, of fraud and breach of trust. Fraud and breach of trust manifested by your proclamation the Prime Minister is not suspect in the submarines case, while neglecting to state that he is suspect as sin in the presence case, in the media coverage diversion case, and in the Beza case, and for not stating the exact crimes the Prime Minister is suspect of. I accuse you, Mr. Attorney General, for deliberate obstruction of justice in the Netanyahu cases, an obstruction of justice causing prolonged foot dragging, allowing the public to assume there is an imaginable scenario in which a prime minister who receives presents worth 1 million shekels can somehow justify his actions, allowing the public to assume that there is an imaginable scenario in which a prime minister recorded negotiating diversion of media coverage in return for preferential legislation can somehow justify his actions, that there is an unimaginable scenario in which a prime minister who perjured himself in a declaration under oath to the state controller can somehow justify his action. I accuse you, Mr. Attorney General, for subversiveness by allowing yourself to be a tool in the hands of the Prime Minister in his assault on the gatekeepers of democracy and on regulators, on the administration institutions and the court system, and for the destruction of the Israeli society and its degradation and the turning of a faithful city into a harlot. She that was full of justice, righteousness lodged in her, but now murderers. Thy silver has become dross, thy wine mixed with water. Thy princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loveth bribes and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Isaiah chapter 1, verses 21 to 23. I also accuse you, my kinsmen, that 70 years of the festival of freedom as an independent people were not sufficient for you to make the transfer from slavery to freedom. 70 years you celebrate the festival of freedom as an independent people, and yet you are still exilic slaves. 70 years you are independent, and yet villains persuade you with magic and tricks pulled from beneath black drapes, that still foes are rising to cause your extinction. And you relish on this poisonous potion, and so indifferently accept mass killing and maiming. After all, they have risen to fight us, you say. Us? With the world's second most powerful air force? Us? With the most powerful armored corps in the Middle East? With the intelligent apparatus second to none? With infantry soldiers who send shivers through the spines of all the region's armies? And you have been convinced that it is okay to shoot live ammunition at 20,000 wretched peasants, because with their bare hands and their Molotov cocktails, they can rise to make you extinct? I accuse you, my kinsmen, that in the exile that is imprinted on you, which you were not able to free yourselves in 70 years of independence, you still need the landlord to acknowledge your existence. And still you are joyous and eager to lick his boot whenever he acknowledges the obvious, that you exist and that Jerusalem is your capital. Yours is the contempt. I accuse you, my kinsmen, that you celebrate the triumph of an international competition with a song that is all acceptance and inclusion of the foreign, different, weak, and human being, be he or she whom they may be, while your community is the exact opposite, a community in which gender segregation is quietly accepted even in secular circles, in which the foreigner and the different are despised and hated and defenseless, a society of hypocrites. I accuse you, Mr. Moshe Kahlon, that in this dire time you continue to sit in the den of thieves that is the Israeli government, and refrain from making a moral stance stating that this government is inappropriate, and that a civil servant drowning in criminal cases, and one that the police have concluded that there is sufficient evidence to indict, cannot remain in office where he makes daily crucial decisions for the citizens of Israel. I accuse you, Mr. Yair Lapid, for abandoning the citizens of Israel protesting this vile government, cynically hoping to portray yourself as an identical twin to Mr. Netanyahu should he be ousted from power, instead of offering a value and moral alternative. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, of treason of your people for being the divider of the Israeli society, for separating the delicate glue that bonded the tribes, and for inciting a brother against a brother to kill him. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, for cynical treason of your people for personal survivability. You have alienated half the Jewish people living in the diaspora from the half living in Israel, thus impeding the survivability of the Jewish state. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, of treason of the Zionist purpose, turning the dream of an exemplary society and twisting it to a cynical, compassionless grotesque, compassionless to the foreign and the different, and even for the weakest of my kinsmen. I accuse you, Mr. Prime Minister, in treason toward the principles of the Declaration of Independence, and thus bringing an end to the Zionist dream. You will be remembered eternally in disgrace as the destroyer of the Third Temple. There is no force that can destroy us externally. You will destroy us from within. You are wanted for interrogation for months now. You are requested to report without delay. And you, my friends, you may be mad at me. You may also be in disagreement with me. And you, my kinsmen, who are weak and scared, may hate me, and may curse me, and may swear at me. And I will stand here like a thorn in your throat, and will continue to show you your ugly reflection, whether you like it or not. I will do so, even if I remain last and alone with my banner in the town's square. In matters of moral and justice, majority and quantity are irrelevant. A sole man against a whole nation may be just, whereas they are wrong. Wake up, my kinsmen. Wake up, gatekeepers. Straighten your backs. Sift the wheat from the chaff. All the propaganda spins, Gaza, Syria, Iran, the law to curb the Supreme Court, the French law, the Mossad operations, the transferring of the embassy, they are all directed at a single purpose, which is the postponement of the inevitable, the indictment of the divider and the inciter, the bribe taker, the betrayer of his people, and the embezzler of his post. Don't lend your hand to this vile act. Go to the streets and raise your voice. Fulfill your duty as citizens and as civil servants. You too, Mr. Chief of Police, Netanyahu is required for interrogation. Demand his prompt report, even publicly. You have 200 days left in office. Bring the investigations to completion. Collect Netanyahu's testimony in the submarines case, and if required, read him his rights. If you are the protectors of the Israeli democracy, if you would like to see a government in which corruption and decay have not taken hold, tie a blue ribbon to the side mirror of your car in solidarity. Oh yes, and share this post to every kinsman you know. Post it to your congregation's page or your WhatsApp or Telegram groups. Share it now on your feed. Together, we will rid ourselves of this bad government and criminal regime. Thank you for your participation and thank you for your comments. This will be available shortly also with the YouTube link for those of your kinsmen and family and members of the tribe who are not on Facebook, so that you can share it in other social networks. Thank you, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.